The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. One former Supreme Court justice supports President Duterte's decision to terminate negotiations with China regarding the oil and gas exploration in the West Philippine Sea. Maricel Halili has the report.
The Philippines has terminated its talks with China for a joint oil and gas exploration in the West Philippine Sea. Foreign Affairs Chief Teodoro Locsin Jr. said it has been on the table for 3 years, but they have not achieved anything. He also insisted that the government will not allow it to push through at the expense of our sovereignty.
One step forward from where we stood on the edge of the abyss is a drop into constitutional crisis. That explains the sudden pullback on my part.
Former Associate Justice Antonio Carpio said the government made the right decision because when the two parties were about to sign the third and last agreement, Beijing wanted to delete some provisions.
China said, we will not agree to enter into the third agreement unless you change that provision. Delete the provision which says the oil and gas belongs to the Philippines. Delete also the provision that Philippine law will govern.
However, he still gave the Duterte administration a failing mark in the issue of the disputed territory. Carpio said Duterte should have not allowed Chinese vessels to fish in the country's exclusive economic zone.
The Chinese just scared us because Duterte allowed himself to be bullied by China. That's why we're back to square one. We should follow what Malaysia did and what Indonesia did.
Moving forward, Carpio encouraged the incoming administration to submit to the arbitration. It means that ASEAN countries like the Philippines must identify the boundaries of their own territories. The government must also encourage other nations to sign in order to recognize the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
One security analyst says that the government's decision to cancel talks with China on the West Philippine Sea oil exploration indicates that they have failed to implement an appeasement policy approach. In an interview with the Chief's International Studies professor Renato De Castro explained that the Philippines did not heed to China's preferred approach in managing the issue. De Castro added that the joint development was on the table since 1980s, and this was also offered by China to other claimant status or states of the disputed waters.
The only possibility I see is a unilateral effort on our part, which incidentally was adopted by Indonesia. I guess the Indonesians have more guts, and of course are risk takers compared to our government, which is practically very risk averse.
With this, De Castro said that incoming Marcos administration should assert the country's sovereign rights over the West Philippine Sea.
What we can do at this time is simply to show China that we have the courage, we have determination to assert our claim.
Now, we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. The MMDA will implement road closures and traffic rerouting plan for the inauguration of President-elect Bongbong Marcos next week. Starting tomorrow until 11 p.m. of June 30, Padre Burgos Avenue, Finance Road, Maria Orosa Street, and General Luna Street will be closed to motorists. The Ayala Boulevard and Victoria Street will also be blocked off on June 30 from 4 in the morning till 11 p.m. In line with this, the MMDA will implement a rerouting scheme for PUVs and private vehicles. Northbound motorists from Ross Boulevard should turn right at the UN Avenue or Calao Avenue, then turn left at the Taft Avenue. Now, those heading to east coming from Ross Boulevard should turn left at Calao Avenue or UN Avenue, then turn right at Taft Avenue. Stars of Boy Love series gathered for the first time in celebration of the BL Festival in the Philippines. Here's the story.
It's a celebration of love from pandemic and beyond in this year's first ever Boy Love Festival in the country. Fans went crazy as they played along with their favorite indie boys love actors. For the first day of the celebration, BL stars from Thailand flew all the way to the Philippines to meet their supporters.
Mabuhay mga Marites.
The program was jam-packed with performances celebrating Pride Month courtesy of several independent artists. Filipino BL stars say they are grateful for the chance to celebrate their stories and artistry amid the pandemic.
Well, actually, masaya ako kasi nakaka-overwhelm, nakasama ko sa isang event na katulad nito. At saka syempre, di ba, iba yung pakiramdam na may invite ka sa ganito.
The BL genre saw a growth in online viewers during the pandemic, with hundreds of web series and movies aired on various platforms. Now that things are slightly going back to normal, some say that BL fever is already dying out. But BL stars disagree.
Siguro meron lang din talagang mga like sports, nagkakaroon na ng sports ngayon. Then may mga project na ibang ginagawa pero I think hindi siya natatabunan. Kasi marami pa rin gumagawa at saka marami pang ikukwento sa atin yung community.
When we do BL, it's not just for entertainment. It's a voice, it's a representation. So for me, kahit naman mawala kahit di man umusbong masyado ang BL ngayon, it will always forever remain in our hearts. It will always remain history and of course the influence to other people.
The first Pinoy BL Festival will be held at Skydome North EDSA until June 26, with special guests from Pinoy, Thai and Korean BL series and movies, as well as performances from P-pop groups. For News 5, Jem Avancenia, we are One News.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 12 noon as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Bask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.